Hello, welcome back. Got to finish up today. I'm going to move pretty rapidly, so you better pay attention. Get them study guides out. All right, so we're talking about the French Revolution. Started yesterday discussing many of the causes and also the two events that often historians use to kind of define or to locate the beginning of the French Revolution. One was formation of the National Assembly, and then the second was, because it is a violent bloodbath after all, you need some violence, so you need to pick an event, and that would be the storming of the Bastille, July 14th, 1789. That's a date that you want to know. Add that to the other list of the dates that you've done forgotten already, like the Peace of Augsburg, like the fall of Constantinople. What else you forget? The bubonic plague, 1347, 1555, 1453, 1681, siege of Venice, or Vienna rather. Okay. But July 14, 1789, that's the day that you want to know. All right. That's when they stormed the Bastille and chopped the head off. A couple heads up parading around the pikes like a bunch of barbarians. Okay. Okay. So this event here is when things get a little interesting. Okay. As far as like international attention to this event, most people that were considered enlightened or liberals, or many people in politics, tended to have a somewhat ambiguous outlook, kind of undecided. All right. There were a few that were in favor all the way through. Thomas Paine, the author of Common Sense, he was in support of this, even when it got bloody. But it was this action, the Women's March on Versailles, that began to kind of turn some people, kind of turn their stomachs a little bit. This display of bloodlust by women, all right, was something that really kind of bothered them. Anyway, there was a desperate situation in Paris, as we said. The crop failures of 1788 created a situation where the monarchy was incapable of providing the kind of aid and relief that the people needed. Okay, and as I said also yesterday, the fluctuation in bread prices also corresponded to the heightened aggression and the uptick of violence in the cities. Okay, and the women played a very prominent role in a lot of this during the French Revolution. The women who were involved were city workers, and they were not at all dainty, nor were they afraid to pick up some of their tools and use their tools as weapons. And some of the women that were most prominent or notorious were the fishmongers. Right? Them Frenchies they like a lot of fish, right? And vichyssoise, you should look that up. I don't like it. I don't think you would either. Fish head soup, probably don't want to eat that. Anyway, these women were tired of the fact that they were starving, they couldn't provide for their families, and this opinion, reputation of the royal family being one that they are completely out of touch. They said they're gonna go and make sure that the National Assembly and the monarchy knows exactly the suffering and plight of its people, and they're gonna get fed in the process. So about 7,000 of them organized and began their march towards Versailles, about 12 miles away. It is a good time as any to kind of tell you about the reputation of Marie Antoinette Now, she was the daughter of Maria Theresa. She was, as a young Austrian princess, not at all liked by the French people, primarily because she was incapable of providing her husband, Louis XVI, for the first several years of their marriage with an heir to the throne. And rumors abounded that little old Marie Antoinette was cheating on her husband, and she didn't love him, and she was failing at her primary function, and that was to provide the king with an heir. Okay, and it wasn't necessarily that the king wasn't interested, but it was because he kind of had some problems, reproductively speaking, and at any rate, he had to have an operation, and that operation, kind of voila, fixed his problem, and presto, they got an heir to the throne. But that didn't stop the damage, right? The damage had already been done. People were already thinking bad things, and so when those women went out to Versailles, they wanted to get their hands on her, okay? And not in a nice way. Okay. What happened? Hold on. All right, sorry about that. We had a bit of a technical difficulty. Anyway, so this moment is important for a number of reasons. All right. First, this symbolizes the fact that when these women get there and get their hands on the royal family, well, not literally, but they are the women. These 7,000 women are responsible for bringing the royal family back to Paris. All right, and that sends a message, okay, that the king and his authority, his sovereignty is really in question, and his days are kind of numbered. All right. It also speaks to the importance that the important role that women played throughout this revolution. All right. So that's important for y'all to know. Now, when they went to the National Assembly, they were able to gain an audience with the king, and he spoke to them about his his intentions to bring, alleviate the suffering of the people. But that wasn't enough for these women, and they wanted to get, like I said, they wanted to get their hands on Marie Antoinette, and so they broke into the royal palace and they killed themselves some guards, cut their heads off, for God's sakes, and parading them heads around on the pikes. All right, but they went into the bedroom of the queen herself. She was in, she had been hidden, but they tore her bedroom apart, and they wanted, like I said, they wanted to get their hands on her. They wanted to tear her limb from limb. Some people wanted to take her arm off. Some people wanted to get a leg, and other people wanted to get a wing. Crazy. All right. I guess they were hungry. Okay, so really what's important also is the role that the National Assembly has played. Now, most of the soldiers have joined into not the National Assembly, but the National Guard. All right, and the Marquis de Lafayette, they follow this progression of women to Versailles, and it's only their presence that keeps the royal family alive. But as I said, they are escorted back to Paris, and they are assigned or placed kind of under the watchful eye of the National Assembly at the old palace. It's called the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where the National Assembly will no longer be out at Versailles either. They're going to be operating in Paris as well. Okay. Now, when we look at what the women gained out of the revolution, they didn't get too much. All right, they got the right to divorce in some instances. They got the right to possess property. But as far as being involved in the political arena, no, no, and no. Not at all, not ever. Okay? This is a 19th century development, and not even women gaining the right to vote until the 20th century. All right? So it's not until the very end of this course that women get their fair share, their fair shake, okay? But there are two notable women, Olympia de Gouges, that you need to know. She is a French playwright, and she spoke out following the Declaration of the Rights of Man. She pens the Declaration, another pamphlet, the Declaration of the Rights of Woman, and basically she goes down all the various points of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, and addresses it from a female's standpoint, and indicates that women are deserving of the same rights as free citizens are as well. So that is the role that she takes. Down here at the bottom, the assembly takes a look and kind of revises some of the geography of France, and it had been divided in probably more than 300 provinces, and it was disconnected. And so what the French Revolution will help do is consolidate. All right, and so they take those 300 or so provinces, and then they consolidate them down to what are known as 83 departments. Okay, and they also, when it came to economic issues, the revolution embraced laissez-faire economic policy. Okay, so what that means is no government intervention. Right? Now these people are traditional liberals. Okay, distrustful of government, and also this notion that the economy is a self-functioning entity, and it is not. In no way does any government intervention necessary. And so what they do is they start stripping mercantilism away out of the economy. And some of the other things they get rid of are guilds, right? Because guilds are just a fancy term for a monopoly that skilled craftsmen use to keep prices artificially high and jacked up. And one of the other things they get rid of is more or less labor unions. All right, so at least for the first part, they're going to kind of revert back after a little bit. Okay, now this is important. The civil constitution of the clergy. The revolutionaries took some missteps. All right, and this is one of the early missteps. They seized a whole bunch of land from the Catholic Church, specifically monasteries, and they used that land as collateral to begin a new currency. Okay, and using that land as I said, it provides some value to this paper currency. Okay, and then the other thing that they do is they force the Catholic Church to sign this civil constitution, and what that means is they got to take an oath of loyalty to the revolutionary government, to the legislative assembly, or the at this point it's still the National Assembly, and then that they have to, the church has been completely secularized, meaning it is subordinated to the state. Right? And they get paid by the state. They get voted in the positions. So no more appointing bishop, the position of a bishop or a cardinalship or anything like that. Okay, so the Catholic Church though didn't really this didn't sit well with the leadership. Okay, with the bishops and the cardinals, none of them signed this they refused, and only about 50% of the actual parish priests did. Okay, and so what this does is it doesn't sit real well with the peasantry. Okay, the peasantry very loyal to the Catholic Church, and they see this as kind of like an assault on their very important religion. Okay, and so this creates a divide between the third estate as far as the revolution goes, and so you're not going to be able to count on the peasantry to be in support of this, okay, of the revolution. All right. Now, next, I already mentioned a little bit about some of the international response, okay. One of the voices that's important is this man named Edmund Burke, and when we get into later on talking about conservatism, he is kind of known as the original conservative, okay, and these are people who favor the status quo, maintaining the status quo. They are not necessarily interested in drastic change, okay, so they are the opposite of a liberal, okay, and they feel that tradition in all the institutions and the way that things have been, the established pecking order, the fact that society has been stratified, they're okay with that because they believe that helps maintain order. Okay, so they see chaos as the enemy. Okay, and so Edmund Burke initially was unsure, but after the Women's March, he came out vocally against it. And he wrote a piece here, the Reflections on the Revolution in France, and really uses some derogatory adjectives to describe it. He refers to it as barbarism. All right, a bunch of barbarians running around chopping people's heads off. So that is not to say, though, that he was not in favor of change. He was, but the difference is this: he favored evolutionary change, just not revolutionary. Y'all got that? I like that. That's pretty cool. That sounds nice. All right. Another female, Mary Wollstonecraft. She is an English woman, and she wrote in response to Edmund Burke's criticism of the French Revolution, and she attacked his writings with something known as the Vindication of the Rights of Man, and then she followed it up 2 years later with the Vindication of the Rights of the Woman. And what she says is she attacks him because she sees the French Revolution as benefiting women. Okay, one of the things that she does that's very interesting is she calls for women to have the right to an education, an equal education to that of a man. And she kind of takes the words of Rousseau from the Book of Meal, where he talks about women, their primary function is to raise children, and she kind of uses that as the reason behind why women are deserving of an education, so that they can be better mothers. Okay, but she doesn't stop there. She goes on further and says that women deserve to have the same kind of access to jobs, and that women are deserving of the same kind of political rights as men. And heck, they should also have the right to hold political office. All right, so she is considered, as a result of all of this, as really the very first modern feminist. Okay, and she gives birth to the feminist movement. Okay, now countries that border France are a little nervous. Okay, there are a lot of Germanic principalities, right, that border France, and a lot of the nobles have fled. About 16,000 nobles have fled with their families to places where they might have some kind of political connection. All right, and basically what they want is they want to raise an army and go back in and overturn the revolution. And they're writing letters, and they're starting trouble just over the border, mainly in the Austrian Netherlands. Okay, and the brother of the royal family has convinced, through spies and secret letters and correspondence, Louis to go ahead and attempt to flee. And this is his this is his fatal mistake. All right, because they are discovered. All right, very close to their final destination. This little map up here says Austria, but this is the Austrian Netherlands. All right, and so this is very close, but they are at a customs office. The king is recognized, dressed up as the Bourgeoisies, and the king is recognized by a royal official, and they are arrested just miles from where they were to be met here at Metz by an army, okay, that was prepared to have the king lead them into France and to retake Paris, okay? So they were so close, but ultimately fate intervened, okay, and it was not to be. So the royal family was brought back to the Tuileries Palace. So this is the Tuileries Palace. This is the Seine River, okay, and back here is the old Louvre, which is a museum, right, and up here somewhere is the Arc de Triomphe, okay, but these are the gardens. See, over time, this structure has been added on by, over a couple hundred years. Okay, so it is at this point in time a complete courtyard. All right. Now, as I said, this was a fatal mistake because once the Legislative Assembly finds out what the king had done, they see him as a traitor. Right? He's bailing out on his own country. Right, and they know that he was conspiring to have the revolution overthrown, and so that now inside of the Legislative Assembly there are calls, vocal calls for the king to be deposed and tried for treason. Okay, now this is made worse, and I guess the assumption that many in the Legislative Assembly have that the king was a traitor against the cause is confirmed when the Holy Roman Emperor Leopold and Frederick William II of Prussia signed the Declaration of Pillnitz, which essentially is an order. It's a warning, okay, that if harm should come to the royal family, that they will in fact attack or invade France, okay, and the Legislative Assembly decides that this Declaration of Pillnitz is a declaration of war. So they in turn declare war against Austria and also Prussia. All right, and so this fighting is going to continue in one manner or another all the way through 1815. All right, and that's the final defeat of Napoleon. All right, now talking a little bit about these social clubs of the bourgeoisie, okay, and one of them is known as the Jacobins. All right, now the Jacobins talk about political matters, okay, and guy Robespierre, Maximilian Robespierre, was a member of this club. Now these social clubs, this is the brain. This is the brain behind the revolution, okay, and there are several radicals that are in this group, and they have tremendous influence at the Legislative Assembly. And if the Legislative Assembly does not do what the Jacobin Club wants, then they are ridiculed in the press, and so they become very influential, right? And these people use any means necessary to whip up then they figure it out pretty quickly that, and I mentioned this earlier, if they can get the city people like the sans-culottes, all right, the people without breeches, to be violent, they can control this revolution, all right, and they can control the direction, right, and so they're very aware of that. Okay, so let's see. Things are going to begin to become more violent. All right, so we're almost to the end of the moderate phase, to the beginning of the violent phase. What's here? The countries that have aligned themselves against France, known as the First Coalition. There's going to be a number of these coalitions as time goes on, especially when Napoleon comes into power. But it's first Prussia and Austria, and then later Spain, and then England is going to join as well. All right, but not yet. Coming soon. All right. So the war against France goes very poorly. All right. Most of their generals and officers have been kicked out. Okay, because they were royalty. All right. I mean nobility, and so their army at this point in time is very inexperienced. Okay, very green. And so the initial fighting does not go well. And in fact, the Prussian army invades France and is nearing Paris. And this gets everybody all freaked out, okay? And they get kind of desperate and angry and emotional. And so a mob of several thousand, 20,000 people break into the Tuileries Palace, and they savagely kill all 900 of the king's personal guards, okay, the Swiss guard. The royal family is able to escape into the legislative assembly, seeking protection, but they were essentially, at that point, labeled prisoners because they did, legislative assembly didn't want to go against the mob. You never go against the mob. You kind of do what the mob says. And so they don't let the mob kill them, but they put them in a tower, in a prison, okay? And as I said, their fate is sealed, okay? As I said, also, the Jacobins are pushing the legislative assembly to become more radical. They want, what is it that the radicals want? They want a republic, okay? At this point in time, they're a constitutional monarchy, but really the king has got no power. All powers in the legislative assembly, but they don't want to stop there. They want this movement to grow, and they want it to spread, not just in France, but across Europe, okay? And so they want a republic with universal male suffrage. It's crazy, okay, at this time period to have something so drastic, such a drastic change, okay? And there's infighting, okay? And this legislative assembly kind of divides itself amongst radicals, moderates, and conservatives. And this little here chart tells you, and if you look at the American political spectrum, like people who consider themselves liberals today are known to be on the left, and those who are considered conservative are known to be on the right. That matches where they would all sit. They would assemble themselves inside the actual hall that the Legislative Assembly met. At any rate, the divide is great, and there are calls for a new constitution to be written, and so they want France to become a republic with universal male suffrage, and that's exactly what happens, okay? Now, as I said, fighting is not going well, and the Prussian military is just outside the city gates of Paris, and they issue something called the Brunswick Manifesto, and again, it's another warning, all right? Well, it backfires and gets all the mobs all freaked out because most of the soldiers are all fighting, and so the city of Paris is kind of empty, all right? And someone figured, I don't know who it is, probably one of them Jacobin journalists, starts printing articles that there is some kind of conspiracy between the Prussian army and the prisoners that are held inside of Paris. And so what they do is they break into this prison and they pull out all these prisoners, priests and innocent people, nobles and women, and they start having trials, all right? Like makeshift trials, and everybody's sentence is guilty, and that gives, according to these people, the right to execute them. But they just savagely brutalize these people, all right? And there is one particular story about this poor princess of Lamballe, all right? One of the queen's favorites was hacked to pieces, and that's what this painting here is of. All right. At any rate, this new this new government decides that it's time for the king to go. Nope, and nobody disagrees with that. All right, he is deposed, so that means he is a common man, and then the decision is made they want to try him. All right, they want to try him for treason. All right? And he's found guilty. All right, but those moderates that are left, all right, in the legislative assembly, they just don't want the king killed. All right, they said, go ahead and just get rid of him. Let's exile him or something. Let's not kill him. And it was pretty divided. I think when the vote came down, there was like 361 votes, or excuse me, 360 votes that said let's spare the king's life, and only 361. So a simple majority of just one is what seals the king's fate, and he was summarily executed. All right, and they used the guillotine. Okay, now the guillotine was a device, a contraption that was designed by a doctor, a Parisian doctor, who wanted to come up with a more humane way to execute people. All right, and so on one level, that's what this is, but it's important to understand that this symbolizes that all the people that are executed the same way. Okay, and that is through the guillotine. So even the king himself, he don't get no special send-off. He's going to be executed just the same way that everybody else is. So it's kind of morbid to think, but in a way it symbolizes equality. I don't know, egalite. All right, everybody gets killed the same way. It doesn't really matter how you get killed, but to them it was important. All right, so as I said, the other countries of England, of Europe, joined the coalition, the first coalition. However, the military at this time is starting to get its feet under them, and it's starting to order conscription, right? Universal conscription, and the people respond. All right, so this war, a war against all these foreign countries, has helped unite the people. All right, and so there's a united front. In the French population, talking 25, 26 million, there are hundreds of thousands of young men that are willing to fight for their country. All right, and that's where this third slogan of the French Revolution, fraternité, comes into play, and that is brotherhood. Okay, and so this is, we talked a little bit about nationalism, but this is where nationalism really becomes what its most modern interpretation of. Okay, version. It's the most modern version, right? And it's very supportive of one's own kind, but equally distrustful of foreigners. Okay, and so this is what is useful to help them win. All right, we're getting to the end of this. All right, there are several shortages. There is a need to okay, so take control of the economy. All right, at the beginning, there were laissez-faire type of economic policies implemented, but it's been disastrous. Okay, so what they have to do is they have to take, the government has to take a firm, because of it's a state of emergency. Okay, there's a war going on, so the government, and that's okay, I guess. A lot of other countries have done so. Right, they need to take over the economy, because they have to make sure that they have enough supplies for their soldiers and they have enough food, and not to mention those crazy bread prices got to keep spiking. They got to stop. Right, so they implement what are called price controls. Right, so the point is, the idea of liberalism kind of goes away. Right, it's a state of emergency. They're very concerned about the war effort. They're very concerned about conscription, the draft. They got to make sure that they have enough people, and there are too many voices. Right, there's too many people who have different ideas about what this revolution means, and out of this Jacobin club emerges Maximilian Robespierre and all his henchmen, and they're very radical, and they believe that there can only be one voice, all right? And for them to be successful, they got to get rid of everybody else, all right? And so the convention forms what's known as the Committee of Public Safety, and their job is supposed to, kind of oversee the economy and make sure that the war machine is properly, running and funded and fueled, okay? And so this committee, with Maximilian Robespierre, basically implements martial law, all right? And he rules with an iron fist. And during this time period, it's known as the Reign of Terror. Maximilian Robespierre more or less rules as a dictator, okay? He's a tyrant, okay? And he wants to create, and this is crazy, he wants to create what's known as a Republic of Virtue. And it's just silly. It just really is silly, because these people, they're supposed to be guided by Enlightenment virtues, okay? And one of the most important Enlightenment virtue is about, fair treatment, okay? And humane and just punishment, okay? All that stuff goes out the window. And they believe that, the revolution must be protected and enhanced. And so if anybody is to stand in opposition to that, they are not just an enemy of the revolution, heck, they're an enemy of France, and that means they're treasonous, and they, as traitors, have to be executed. Just crazy. And so public executions begin to intensify, and somewhere between 25 and 40,000 enemies of the state are executed. Now, this doesn't really rise to the kind of numbers that we see in the 20th century with some of the dictators, but the fact that this revolution was successful is what the whole thing's about. This is why this is such a big deal, because nothing like this has ever worked before, all right? And so the fact that it was, at least for a time being successful, is what's noteworthy, and this is, why it's so important, or one of the reasons why it's important. All right, so these crazy heads of the Committee of Public Safety, they had some crackpot ideas, all right, and they want to get rid of, they want to de-Christianize, they want to get rid of everything from the past, because no more looking back, all right? Everything is based on reason. They're going to move forward. They get rid of the church. They close the churches down. They convert the Cathedral of Notre Dame to the what is it? I don't know, the Temple of Reason or some gosh darn thing like that. And then they get rid of Catholicism as the official religion, and they come up with the worship of the Supreme Being. Okay, and so that's like deism. And then what else they do? They change the calendar. Right? They want to distance themselves from everything. Okay, so instead they got 30-day months, but 3 10-day weeks. All right, and so they get rid of before long. Nobody knows what Sunday is, the Lord's Day. They all forget about that. Change months of the year. What else they do? They come up with the metric system. That's probably about the only thing useful to come out of this, in my opinion. Sorry, but they come up with the metric system. All right, and what else they do? Well, anyway, throughout all of this, he is still maintaining that they have got to, perpetuate this revolution. And most people are getting tired, man. They just want things to go back to normal. It's like, we killed everybody else. We got a republic. What else do you want? Why do we got to keep killing everybody? And so sooner or later, the Committee of Public Safety turns and they eat their own. They turn on him, all right, because they don't want to be next. And they're getting tired of this man. And so before you know it, he gets executed, all right? So in the summer of 1794, everything comes to a close, okay? The revolution comes to an end, all right? And there's going to be a backlash period. Well, this is the beginning of it. We're going to call it a Thermidorian reaction, all right? And that's when the sane people come back and start running things, okay? So that's all for today, and I'm going to wrap this up. Adios.